I was in here last night and there was a very large spider. I've come back today. He's not here. I don't know where he's gone. So if at any point in the next like 15 to 20 minutes I meet my untimely demise, you know why. Hello everybody and welcome back to another one of these fantastic tier list videos. My name is RabbidLuigi. Last time it was Animal Crossing games. We talked about Animal Crossing games. There's a fair deal of variety to those. Some of them are pretty amazing. Some of them are very bad, make me very sad. And it made for an interesting tier list video because there's some discrepancies in how we feel about it. I feel like generally people were happy with how the tier list video went. Not so sure if the same is going to apply today, because I'm kind of running out of Nintendo franchises to look over, so I decided that I would change gear, change lane, any of those terminologies, and look into Ocarina of Time dungeons. I might like hone in on more specific things like this, just because it's a bit of fun. That's what these midweek videos are, just a bit of fun. And try and work out, because I haven't really thought about it, how I feel about each individual dungeon and like dungeon-y area in Ocarina of Time. Have we got the Ice Cavern? Yeah, we do have the Ice Cavern. I'm just checking. I got something, my recording setup's right in front of my face, so I have to lean around it to actually look at my screen that has all my stuff on it, because I, fine men and women of YouTube, I am a professional. And of course, if you're new to this, the way I kind of decide roughly how I'm going to do a tier list video without thinking about it beforehand is to put my favourite in S rank and then decide from there on out. And that's a little hard for me to do because immediately, not so sure what my favourite is. But I really like the Forest Temple. We might move things around as we go, but I like the Forest Temple. It's the first dungeon you go to as an adult because that's just how they decided to do it. It was originally going to be some kind of wind temple. I think that's what the early sort of beta rulings of Ocarina of Time seem to indicate, but it was supposed to be some kind of wind temple. It became the Forest Temple. What I love about it is how mysterious it is, because it has no precedent. Really, there's no precedent within the game and within Zelda as a whole as the first adult 3D dungeon for you to explore. You don't know what you're going to get. You have no idea what you're actually going to experience doing this. And the fact that it's so mysterious, so like formal, and it's got doors. It hasn't got big old slabs of concrete that go up and down. It's got doors. It's got a lot of architecture to it. It's got a backstory that nobody really knows. There's all sorts of theory videos. It's got some atmosphere to it, some really weird music. I wouldn't even call it creepy music. It's just weird sounds. It's an atmospheric joy to play through, and it's got some weird puzzles going on. You get the bow in it, so you get to shoot some ghosts, and there's Phantom Ganon at the end. There's lots of individual components to it that make it a lot of fun to experience. So it's up in S for me because it's got the most right of any Zelda dungeon in Ocarina of Time. It's what I want to see more of, frankly. So it's going to be an S, and I don't really think there's anything in this which is going to change it, frankly. I just have to look through these because, like, it's not immediately obvious what some of them are easy, like this is obviously the Spirit Temple. This took me a little while, but it's obviously Beneath the Well, which you go to as just a child. It's a strange change of pace in Ocarina of Time about, like, I don't know, 3/5 of the way through. Hey, suddenly you got to go back down to the well as a child and have fun with that because it's blocked up as an adult. And this is kind of where Ocarina of Time changes into more of a creepy game. It's got some creepy undertones, but they're more overtones with Underneath the Well because it is implied that it's some kind of torture area for, you know, it's hard to describe. Not a lot of this is on face value, but there's lots of little theories and little details, like how there's blood and there's torture devices and there's lots of ghosts and bad things. And as a dungeon, it's not amazing. It's quite short. It's got Dead Hand as like the boss, but it's kind of a mini dungeon anyway, so it's kind of a short experience where you just go from room to room, screwing around with the Lens of Truth. Basically, it's like a precursor to the Shadow Temple, but it has to be short because it's not a main dungeon, so I have to judge it as a short dungeon. I do like it. It's kind of doesn't really do much for me. There's a lot which the Shadow Temple does better. There's a lot in this which is actually done better than the Shadow Temple, but it's a middle of the road B. I like that it's creepy. I don't like that it's short. That's kind of it, really. Inside the Deku Tree, given the unbelievably difficult task of being the first ever 3D Zelda dungeon. You know, Forest Temple has that for the adult dungeon. There's got to be some kind of difference. This is the first time you are seeing a dungeon in 3 dimensions in a Zelda game, so the pressure is massive. I kind of love this dungeon because it's not only Really simplistic, kind of needs to be, first dungeon and all that, you can't go crazy, but it's got a challenge to it. It actually requires you to think about some things. There's some puzzles that, if you're not really in tune with how the game is at that point, you're gonna struggle to understand. You go through this in Master Quest and you're like, oh, that's actually kind of complicated, and I like that, because it has you could easily just like have a series of corridors, a series of boring rooms, you go from one to the next, hey, it's fine. But this actually has some layers, and literally it has layers because it's got a lot of verticality to it, which is obviously, you know, a way of showcasing 3D. You can go up and kind of, you know, there's depth to it. You can leap across the screen and go down and, you know, go through some cobwebs. It's a very, very, very good showcase of three-dimensional gameplay, while also, you know, being easy enough that you're not completely alienating new players. I don't think it's the best, but I really do like the grassy, foresty dungeons, I suppose, because damn, they both do very well for what they need to do at that point in the game, so S is a good place for it. The Fire Temple, which frankly I forget exists most of the time. I don't know why I forget it exists, because it's not, you know, terrible or anything, but it's an odd mix of things that they never really use all that well. I don't know how to describe it. Like, there's the occasional room that I think, oh, this is kind of interesting, but it does also feel kind of generic in places. The one really good thing it had going for it was the creepy, like, Muslim chanting. I don't think it was actually Muslim in the end, but when they had the chanting before in the N64 version, it gave it an ambient that kind of disappeared as soon as Nintendo decided to remove it. So it's now this big cavernous area where there's just a lot of fire. You fight the same mini-boss about 3 times. Volvagia is good. I like Volvagia. It's got like some little secret lore to it that they never really go into much detail with on the game, but I think it's supposed to be like Link's pet or something, or the sacred protector of the Goron tribe, but Ganondorf's made him bad or something. But it's actually a really interesting and entertaining showcase of, again, 3D graphics, and tracking an enemy that moves around, flies around in 3D space is kind of amazing. So it's got that going for it, but I think the rest of it's just a bit bland, if I'm being truly, brutally honest. I always feel like I miss some rooms out when I play it, and like there's some chests that you don't need. The hammer's good. Keep forgetting that the hammer is in this, and like the room in which you get the hammer's kind of cool, because like it's a thin walkway. It's got some things I like, but generally it's just kind of disappointing, especially after the Forest Temple was memorable for a lot of different reasons. It's just kind of there, and I'm gonna put it there in C, because it just doesn't do that much for me. I wish it had the original chanting it, because at least then you spend your time exploring while also listening to this, saying, what the hell are they talking about? Why are they so sinister? Should I be worried? I feel like I should be worried. Ganon's Tower. I did not expect this to be here, but I suppose it is a dungeon. It's a very peculiar dungeon, because I think the original idea for Ocarina of Time is that it would be like Mario 64. The game would start, or, you know, to take place in Ganon's Tower as a hub world, and all the rooms that would splinter off, as in the actual game, it's where you do like the medallion challenges and the different kind of mini temples. That will be like the hub world, like the Mario 64 painting. Didn't happen in the end. It's a completely different experience, but I do like it as a final dungeon, just not as, it's not a high echelon of this tier list, because atmosphere is something this does quite well. It's split in half, split quite nicely in half, because the first half is your standard Zelda affair where you recount previous ideas, like Wind Waker does it. Majora's Mask does it as well, actually, thinking about it. Does Twilight Princess? No, Twilight Princess did not have it. Skyward Sword? No. Breath of the Wild kind of does with the Thunder Blight, with the Blight Cat, whatever. It's a thing that Zelda games used to do quite often, where they would recount themes and ideas and mechanics from previous areas, and, you know, this is like 6 different areas, so it's a bit of a challenge and a bit of a slog to get through, but the second half is really, really good, because you're climbing up Ganon's Tower, you hear the organ music slowly get louder and louder, this creepy music comes in, you get to the top, there's Ganon, you fought all these enemies to get there, including some pretty strong Iron Knuckles, you fight Ganon, he collapses the floor, he collapses the whole goddamn tower on you, which is like an N64 going absolutely haywire and really powerful it's a lot going on in this sequence, it lags like hell. So I think the spectacle, which is what a final level should have a lot of, the spectacle with Ganon's Tower is there. It's just that first half is a nice showcase of previous areas, but it's a bit of a slog, and I remember some of those areas being kind of annoying, like the forest temple area is literally like this wind temple idea, which I've mentioned, but it's not as fun as I think it should be. So it's gonna go there, and that's, I like it. Could be better. I like how I'm giving these criticisms and advice on how to make these areas better on a game that is very old, like more than 20 years old now, so clearly someone will take into account for the remake, won't they? What is this? This isn't the Spirit Temple, that's the Spirit Temple. So we've got Spirit Water, Shadow, Jabu's Belly, Ice Cavern, Dodongo's... What is this? There's a light... Oh, it's the Gerudo Training Ground! It's the Gerudo Training Ground! Is that a dungeon? I suppose it's a dungeon. Alright, it's an optional dungeon. You can get the ice arrows in it. It's this weird thing where you go from room to room, getting keys so you can unlock locked doors to get to a chest in the end. It's kind of cool that there is an optional dungeon in this 3D Zelda game that has clearly had a lot of effort put into it in different places, but I wish it was more cohesive, I suppose. It feels like the offshoots, the offcuts of puzzles that they couldn't quite fit in elsewhere, so they decided to, put it all in one place with an item that doesn't really interact with the game well. Like, the ice arrows work well in Majora's Mask, but in Ocarina of Time they feel like a weird add-on that doesn't actually belong in that game. So I don't really know how to feel about Gerudo Training Grounds, because I like some of the individual rooms, but as a whole, the whole thing doesn't come together well. I'm thinking C. Oh god, I'm moving my keyboard. I'm thinking C, because there's parts I like. The ice arrows being bad and kind of useless kind of bum me out. Is it bad enough to put into D? I'm gonna get into what I think is the D rank in what we've got left, and then judge it off of that. And if it's as bad, it's going into D. But for now, I can stay there. Dodongo's Cavern, a simple, fairly simple child dungeon. The second child dungeon after inside the Deku tree, which I like for one thing in particular, that the central room, and I like a strong central room in my Zelda dungeons, the central room has the skull of a Dodongo in it that you use the dungeon's item to go further into the dungeon. That's cool, because immediately, as soon as you open it up, you see this giant skull. You think, oh, that's kind of cool, nice decoration, probably important, and then you get to actually interact with it, and you use it to progress further into the dungeon, where you fight this giant, size check of a boss, where you think, oh, that's a giant lizard man thing, I'm gonna struggle with that, and it's fairly easy in the end, but it kind of rethinks how you feel about your powers in this game, so I do like it a lot. I haven't really got any criticism that I can think of. It's not a perfect dungeon. There's an area where there's the blades that keep coming up and down, and you got to blow up walls, and I remember that being kind of annoying. But honestly, it's not bad. The central theme, the central idea of blowing up this Dodongo skull, making the eyes red, that's cool. I like an overarching thing. So I'm gonna put it there. It's good. I like it. The Ice Cavern. I believe a leftover from when this game was supposed to have I don't remember how many dungeons, but at least 10. And there was going to be some kind of ice dungeon. 10 seems a lot. I don't think it was 10, but they had an ice dungeon. They split it up into the Ice Cavern and also the Water Temple part of Ganon's Tower. So there was an idea here to do something. The Ice Cavern as it is right now, and it's not going to change. Of course it's not going to change, but the Ice Cavern as it is right now kind of feels like a big old waste of time. I can't remember what you get. You get blue fire, don't you? So it's a mini dungeon to get an item to progress further. So it could be removed entirely and replaced by, some little cave, and we wouldn't really notice or care. The one good thing, is that even the Ice Cavern? I think that might be the Ice Cavern, where you talk to Sheik in this weird, ethereal background. Sheik gives you the Serenade of Water. It's kind of a nice moment, but it's different. It's different to the rest of the dungeon, so it makes me think that it could be elsewhere. Maybe Sheik would give you the blue fire. I don't know, but there's a million different ways of doing it. I don't think the Ice Cavern was the way to do it, and I have never really enjoyed doing the Ice Cavern. It's so short and so pointless that it's got ice physics everywhere, and there's blades, flying around in that room where you get silver rupees. I don't really like it, so I don't know, it's going to stay there for now. Count how many times in one of these tier list videos I say that will stay there for now and never actually change it. It'd be quite a lot. Inside Jabu-Jabu's belly. creepy dungeon. Surprisingly creepy. I know this game has a few creepy dungeons in it, but damn, I don't want to be inside a fish. Especially in Master Quest where they put cows on the wall. I don't want any part of that. It's really weird. So I see what they're doing here. There's some weird size changey craziness because, you know, Jabu-Jabu, I presume he shrinks you down because damn, he is much larger than he actually is in the overworld. So something's going on. Ruto's in here. You have to move Ruto around. She's very annoying. It's used in a few puzzles, but I never really enjoyed this dungeon. The fact that the walls are pulsating and the music is designed to pulsate along with it, I can't really get along. The one thing I like quite a lot is the mini-boss. The mini-boss? No, the mini-boss is weird and annoying. Like, you have to circle it around a rotating platform. But the actual boss, the boss is kind of cool. Baronade, I like Baronade because it uses electricity, uses the boomerang in a fun way. It's this weird, like, parasite. It kind of follows into the idea of the Deku tree and that it's invaded a guardian force for good in the world and you got to defeat it. I like that part, but other than that, like, the boomerang's cool. It's used in a few fun ways. Why are there cows on the wall in this dungeon in Master Quest? I don't even know why. Please don't do that. I'm gonna put it in C because I don't want to think about cows being on the wall inside of a fish's belly because that's just wrong. I've never really liked Jabu-Jabu's belly. He came back in... the dungeon idea came back in Oracle of Ages, and it was weird and confusing, and he had to change water levels, so let's just leave him alone for now, alright? The Shadow Temple, a dungeon that, for a very long time, I absolutely loved. You get the hover boots in it. I love the hover boots for some reason. I don't really know why. I think because they let you kind of glide across open spaces. I like the ambience of this dungeon because, damn, it is creepy as hell. There's all sorts going on. Dead Hands in here again, and so is Bongo Bongo, who is just a terrifyingly weird boss fight. I like a lot about it. My problem is that, upon further reflection, it's an unbelievably linear dungeon. You literally go in one direction the whole time. You don't have to think about anything else. You can't progress until you've gone to the right area. There's no exploration. It's a straight line from start to finish. There's a few dungeons like that, but you notice it the most in Shadow Temple because there's nothing else you can do in the meantime. There's no branching pathways. You don't get a choice. You have to go this way. And I don't know if you could tie that back into the theme of some kind of weird torture area, or I don't really know what it was meant to be in great Hyrule lore, but it's kind of creepy, but kind of really simple. And for that point in the game, I feel like you could make things a bit more complicated. Like, I enjoy some of the set pieces. You have the boat that you gotta get off of and before you die and that sort of stuff, and, you know, Bongo Bongo is always going to be good, but I feel like it's a weird moment of hand-holding in this game where you really should be just letting the player enjoy themselves, because there's a lot to enjoy. So I'm going to put it with the beneath the well, because they both do the same thing. They're creepy dungeons. One's a lot shorter than the other, but I really don't like how linear the Shadow Temple is. You could do a lot more with that. Maybe do like the Mario Ghost House thing and confuse the player, make the map useless or something. You could do so much. Just don't make it a straight line from start to finish, because that's gonna like ruin any tension, any fear I feel. I'm just gonna, you know, it's like a theme park at that point. I've just noticed that the way that this tier list is set out, the one we end off on is probably the most interesting and probably maybe the hardest to place. So before we even get there, let's talk about the Spirit Temple, which is one of my favorites easily, because A, music's really good. Love the music a lot. I love the theme that you come back here as an adult. You do basically half the dungeon, maybe like a third of the dungeon as a child, then the rest of it as an adult. That's kind of cool. Master Quest is kind of wild because you don't actually go to any of those side doors. I think you find a way to go up the middle, like in between. I don't know if I can show you on here, but like there's the side doors. You kind of go up here. There's like a hole in the ceiling. I don't know. You do something weird and it's really cool, but it's a dungeon that is tricky to do because it's the last major dungeon before you do Ganon's Tower, before you finish off the game, and I feel like it does it quite well. I like Twin Rover. Twin Rover's a lot of fun. I like fighting the Iron Knuckles as well, because damn, they're crazy, they're really powerful. You feel every hit they strike on Link because you lose a lot of health for it, but it makes them more of a satisfying challenge to overcome. So I'm pretty pleased. I don't know. is it perfect? It's not perfect, but is it S tier worthy? I need to cough. Is the Spirit Temple along the same lines as inside the Deku Tree and the Forest Temple? I'm gonna say yes, and leave it at that, because we need to focus our energy towards the Water Temple. Oh god, the Water Temple! Why is it here? Why does it have to be here? How do I feel about the Water Temple? Well, it's confusing. The whole idea that you have to take off the iron boots and put them back on to sink or swim, that's kind of annoying. I can't dress that up in any way, other than maybe saying the Ocarina of Time remake does fix that. It fixes quite a few issues, just not with Ice Cavern. And actually, I would say, if you've never done it, play Master Quest, either on, you know, Ocarina of Time 3D or the Master Quest edition of Ocarina of Time original, because it completely changes how this dungeon works. You get the hook shot, you get the long shot really early on, and you kind of can get to areas that you wouldn't be able to get to in this dungeon for a really long time in the standard run-through. My issue is, I don't like the iron boots. I don't like how they're implemented in the game at all. I don't like that you have to change the water level so much, so it's kind of aggravating to get used to that. What I do like, atmosphere. The mini-boss is like the best mini-boss that Zelda's ever done in any Zelda game. Honestly, I can't think of many that are even as close as Dark Link in this game, because he's hard, but he's hard in a way that's understandable, manipulative. You can... It's a mastery of coding that they've allowed to be able to do this in 1998. That's kind of crazy. Or was it? No, it was 1998. And really, when you think about it, my only issues, I don't really like the boss fight. Morpha, I don't know his name. The weird, like, anemone-looking thing. Weird, it's just sentient water. Kind of annoying in that way. You can kill him quite quickly, or it can be really annoying. It's not fun. But my issues are more little nitpicks rather than anything that destroys the dungeon, because something that the Water Temple does that basically on this list no other Zelda dungeon really does all that well is give you options and places to go and asks you to think about what you're doing. It does mean that you might lose a small key and not really know where it is, but it's not unfair, it's just a little bit slow, and maybe if you tweaked it in a few ways it could be better. So it's not a D, it's not a C, I'm wondering B or A. I'm going to go A, because I'm going to be nice and say that there's a lot of good stuff in here, and A, the 3D remake fixes basically many problems that you could have with this, because it makes it very obvious what you're going to do at one point by playing Zelda's Lullaby. It changes the water level. You know how the water level will change, which is good, and the iron boots are an item rather than something you can equip on your person like a tunic, so they're fixed quite nicely. And overall, I just like the idea that it's a dungeon that challenges you at a time when you should be challenged. You should feel comfortable. It's kind of wild that we go from the Water Temple, which is challenging in a reasonably fair way, to the Shadow Temple, which is very much not challenging. So maybe swap them over. Anyway, how do you feel about that? I feel pretty good. I mean, the mini dungeons, I'm surprised they're here. I feel like I wasn't too harsh on the mini dungeons. I don't like Ice Cavern. I've never liked Ice Cavern. It's just annoying, and it's a weird detour at a point where I don't really want one. But I like my favorites. Spirit Temple might be an A, honestly, but it's just good, and it's a good time for all, because there's not really anything I don't like about it. So I'm happy with it in S. What do you think? Do you think I'm talking shit? Do you think that I'm completely wrong? Do you think I need to reevaluate how I feel about the Water Temple? Because honestly, I've fluctuated. I have thought about it a few times and come up with different opinions and different views on it. But at this moment in time, I kind of like it, guys. Not gonna lie, it's not terrible. It's just a bit awkward to do sometimes. But yeah, anyway, let me know what you want me to talk about next in other tier lists. I'm opening them out. I'm broadening my horizons. Just gonna talk about whatever comes to me, whatever I can find in the comment section, and filling up my midweek slot with, you know, talking about Zelda dungeons. Apparently, I don't know. Did think about doing all of them, but there's like a good 100, and I'm not doing that in one video. We'll break it up. But anyway, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.